Welcome to Digit's webinar today. We're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you, everybody. If today is your first exposure to Digits, I'll give you a little bit of background on us, and then we're here to talk paid search specifically at Target. So Digits, we are a independent retail media agency. We're based here out of Minneapolis, and obviously today a lot to spend talking in on Target. So founded up just about 10 years ago. So we are a 10 years old company only doing retail media. And really that is our specialty. From a communication point of view, if you are not signed up for our newsletters, please go ahead and do that. You can scan this QR code or you can go to this URL. We send out flagship newsletters once a month. We also send out newsletters more than that for kind of current clients as well. So make sure you sign up for that. You'll get newsletters. We do a Target, a flagship. We do a regional grocery retail media as well. Digits, really Target is our flagship support retailer based here out of Minneapolis. Myself and a lot of my team are former Target folks. So we are providing flagship premium services for Target. Beyond that, we are national in reach. So we do a lot of paid search and media at Walmart and Instacart. I'd call that a tier one for us beyond Target work. And then from there, we do really retail media at any omni-channel retailer in America. So you can see 10 or 15 of them listed here, but anywhere omni-channel is our specialty. We aren't today involved in pure play e-com, but really more your answer on the omni-channel. We are also agency of record for a number of regional grocers. So Digits operates the largest regional grocer managed service RMN network out there. You can see all of our regionals here, everywhere from Schnucks to Fairway, Coburn's. And then our latest, our brand new one actually is AFS, or Associated Food Stores out of Utah. That one will be going live soon, and you'll hear more from us there if you follow us on LinkedIn and whatnot. But today we are here to talk about Target, and specifically, we are here to talk about paid search. So with that, I'm going to bring on my co-host, Chris. Please join me today. For those that are frequent visitors of our webinars, Chris is a returning voice. So Chris, welcome to the day. How are you doing today?
Great to be back. Excited to talk search at Target here today.
Chris, what is your favorite sort of summertime? What would you be doing today?
Ooh, well, I just got back from a cabin trip with the family here and have a few days alone. Hitting golf course in the twilight hours here. So golf and just time with family, kind of outside, are my two big go-tos that keep me busy.
I get it. Well, so Chris, we're here today specifically talk about search. It for us is the largest growing sort of retail media channel at Target. And I believe we just saw some data that aggregately it's up 20% this year. Does that jive with sort of when you talk to your clients, kind of what they see and where they're at?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a couple of different factors there, really driving that. And, one, look no further than a big part of Target's latest strategy is, if you think about the four pillars that they've laid out of their key strategy moving forward, one of them being, exercising merchandising authority. What that has meant and led to is a lot of newer, and I would say emerging brands, coming to Target for the first time. And, one of the reasons that search has grown from those newer brands is it's a very accessible channel for all brands at Target, but in particular, newer, maybe smaller volume brands just starting out at Target. It is the lowest hanging and most accessible, channel that they can commit to. They also get 100% vendor income credit. So, those that have margin guarantees, helps with that. And then similar to the accessibility, there's no minimum commitment. So you kind of scale your investment there, relative to the size of your business. There are no, minimums or monthly spend requirements that you need to commit to, and you can kind of, turn it on and off as your business fluctuates.
Well, and just to plug that, I know they have been pushing a 3K monthly spend minimum to sort of get turned on. I mean, for most vendors, at least mid-sized ones, you're going to be spending more than that. But some of the new guys, especially if you're in less stores, that might be a bit of a hurdle. But you're certainly not committed to that forever. You kind of have to tell them, hey, we're going to spend 3K a month. And then, I'd say if you get into it and it it's just not working for you or you lose your business or whatnot, you're obviously not committed beyond that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And as a brand, there's a minimum that you will want to spend, obviously, to make sure that it's, making a meaningful impact to your business.
yeah, absolutely. The other piece of it that we've seen starting to impact a bit is the Target Plus as well. And so I know at
Mm-hmm.
Walmart that drives a lot of search growth. If you Google around, you'll read articles on that. Target's behind Walmart there. I would say their Target Plus or marketplace business certainly is not as robust as Walmart's, but I'd say they're playing more in that space. And some categories it's more meaningful than others. But it's starting to drive up the search volume and drive up the search the CPC is in the competitiveness a bit, depending on what category you're in.
Yeah, that's a great call out there as well. And I mean, for those Target Plus vendors, paid search is, one of the only channels or levers that they have to pull outside of just, the online merchandising itself. So heavily utilized in that space and in that type of vendor.
Well, for those on the call, so Chris is our VP of Target. He leads up a lot of our large CPG work, and I know historically one kind of question or point we get pulled into there is organic content and organic search, right? And so vendors are always a little unsure of how does organic search mix with paid search, and different retailers play it differently. So I know we wanted to spend a bit of time here to talk that through. So I'll tee you up, Chris, and then if you can kind of explain how that works at Target for the listeners.
Yeah, and this is really kind of a getting started, before you even start investing in paid search, things that you should be doing to make sure that your on-site search and content is well optimized. But I think a lot of brands do kind of overlook, and they think about paid search. It's all about what am I bidding? What am I which keywords am I targeting? But the organic search really plays a big factor in how many bids you do win in paid search at Target and at other retailers. If you look to the left half of this slide here, there's a little bit more nuance to it than this, certainly. But the two main components of what feeds the paid search algorithm at Target and what ultimately determines who wins which slot is the bid value, so cost per click. What are you bidding on those keywords across your assortment? But then the other half is your quality score, as they refer to it, and that's effectively what is your performance in search organically, and those two are pretty evenly weighted in terms of driving the search algorithm. So yes, absolutely manage your bid values and your, against all of your keywords and all of your items that you're running paid search against. But make sure that your quality score is good for those items as well. And then top three things that, that we would recommend brands looking at here over on the right would be in terms of getting that organic search optimized. Number one, I think will be pretty familiar for a lot of brands. Target has had a content scorecard for almost a decade now, I believe, and pretty consistent outline of what's required for the content there, scored 0 to 100 in aggregate across your business. So benchmark there is most best in class vendors at Target are going to have a 90% or a 90 plus content score, and certainly recommended to get your content at least up to that level, if not closer to 100. Numbers 2 and 3 here, Dave, I would say go a lot more overlooked by a lot of brands, partially because they aren't included in the content scorecard itself. So I think a lot of brands look at the content scorecard, and if I have a good score there, I'm covered on my content and optimized for search, and that really isn't the case because both product titles and number 3 here, your item data attributes, play a huge role in organic search results. So those are actually, essentially 1A and 1B in terms of what drives organic search results at Target. And again, because they're not on the content scorecard, often go overlooked. So make sure you're optimizing those product titles for your top keywords, and make sure you're being really thorough with your item data attributes and, effectively maxing those out for anything relative to your assortment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know Target uses a term called, their automated keywords, right? Where
Hmm.
essentially Target will pre-fill your keyword bids or your keyword practice with, they scrape your site, they look at your content, and then they use an algorithm, whatnot, to figure out which keywords you should be bidding on, and then they sort of pop them in there. I'm sure it's more fancy than that, but that's essentially how they do it, right? So if your content's
More,
good,
yes.
if your content's not good, or if it's not aligned, or it's not robust, then your automated keywords aren't going to be, what you want them to be, and you have to do everything manually, and it just doesn't work quite right. So that it's a makes sense. It's an overlooked step for a lot of vendors, especially newer vendors that maybe just aren't sure how to get it robust at target.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so we're very fortunate here today. A lot of times in these webinars, it's just me and Chris, but today we are bringing in the experts. And so I'm going to welcome to the camera stage here, both Austin and Bridget. So please join us here today. We'll do some intros. So Austin is our analytics and search lead. He's the one really in the systems, developing strategies and how to bring this to life and really squeeze the most out of everybody's, dollars. And Bridget is our retail media manager as well. So she helps lead a lot of our account relationships and being stewards of your money there. So Austin, you're on my left here. I'm going to have you go first. Say hi to the group. We're doing our favorite summer activity just so people learn a little bit more about you.
Hi there. Austin Kucheska. I would say one of my favorite summertime activities is actually having bonfires and having the kids run around, inviting the neighbors over. Outside of that, I love craft beer. So anytime I can grab a hazy IPA on a patio somewhere, sign me up.
Yeah, that sounds good. Maybe indoor today, but I do get you. But Bridget, what about you?
Yeah, my name's Bridget Hammond, and my favorite summer activity, well, I have two teenage boys that both play baseball. So 75% of my summer is spent on the field watching them. So that would be my number one. But the back end of the summer, once that wraps up, we head to the lake every year. And that's just really something I look forward to get on the water and just relax and chill with the family.
Well, that's awesome. So, well, good. So, Bridget, in your role, you really help shepherd a lot of brands from interest to activation to helping manage their spend. I mean, I know I've been exposed to when we get introduced to brands, a lot of them, they're familiar with Amazon, but they might not be all that familiar with Target. And so I was hoping here is because we might have some of those brands on the call, if you can help walk through, at Target, where do the ads live? How does this experience sort of come to life at Target? Like, what are you actually bidding for?
Yeah. So for those that are a little bit newer to target search, this is how it shows up. You might have to kind of move a little closer to see the colors, but each of them kind of tell a story. So if you search for pizza as an example, the target product ads are showing up in the sponsored placement spots 1, 2, 3, which are highlighted in blue. And then we get 7, 8, and 9 as well. The green sections show the organic, buy again based on your shopping history. And then deals are also in green, showing you, what deals are going on. And then in red, there's the Roundel display ads for the managed service only. So that's what it looks like on a web browser.
Well, and I think, that 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, that's a lot of spots. It's 6 of
It
the
is.
top 9. For those that are maybe, legacy Target used to be a lot less. They've slowly increased that through different deployments. And now it's the full top row or full top 3 on the way this displays, the fourth is in the top row. But they've really upped their percentages, and that has led to some of the necessity to be playing in paid search. The other part, and I know a lot of business is done on mobile, and so we screenshotted the same search here, and really it's a much tighter experience. So how does that change the play, or if you will, or the strategy of vendors?
Yeah, so the experience on mobile is obviously different. Actually, a fun fact, 90% of frequency items are purchased on mobile, which is huge. And I don't think most people, would know that fact. The target product ads a lot, they land in the 1, 2, 3 position here on the mobile. You can see those show up right at the top. Only the buy it again placements appear above that fold. And then, mobile really emphasizes the benefits of the top sponsored placement. So 50 to 65% of conversions happen from the top 3 product tiles, which is something I also wanted to share. That just shows us to maintain a presence in the competitive sponsored spots, the targeted product ads are really a necessity, for brands looking to stay visible to the shoppers and convert them.
That trend really makes sense too when you kind of highlighted the tighter real estate available, that it'd be a little bit more, top heavy.
Well, and I think we often get the question from, especially frequency. I mean, pizza's an example. I mean, a pizza is what, $5-6, and so they're like, oh, I have to pay $1 to click or $1.50, whatever the CPC is. How am I supposed to make money on this, right? And it is difficult to turn money, pencil out dollar for dollar. But specifically in frequency, is you're getting into that buy it again. And I think, you might not make money at that first unit, but just a customer acquisition cost, it's a new to brand cost, and then. Just to be clear, this is my search. So I have bought Red Baron and DiGiorno and whatnot. So like, they're in my buy it again. When I next time I need to buy a pizza, I'm obviously so much more likely to buy those because that's what's above the fold and it's easy for me UX wise. So it's always a little harder to quantify. Target search doesn't give you sort of like, oh, they bought it in the first 30 days and then they came back 60 days later again and bought it. I wish they would, but they don't. So you have to sort of build that into stacking on your performance.
Absolutely. And obviously that buy it again is huge, right? So a lot of people don't realize that that's also in play.
Well, and so, if a vendor's interested, I know a lot of your role is getting people up and running and successful. Can you kind of walk us through what that looks like at Target and how long that takes?
Yeah, I would say ideally it's good to start about 4 weeks ahead of when you're ready to run your campaign live. We can do it up to 2 weeks, but I like to kind of give, the 2 to 4 weeks ahead of when you want your campaign to launch is when we start the onboarding process. I start with a kickoff meeting and we'll get access to your system, and then we'll talk about goals, budgets, keywords, timing. And then we send you a little screenshot when your campaign is live and up and running. After that, our team really focuses on making continuous optimizations. We use real-time data to drive performance and provide you with regular recaps, which I send. And it's really nice to know that we are also really flexible so that if you have a change in budget or a change in items, we can really do that anytime. So you're not locked in. And, a lot of brands change out their items, or maybe there's certain ones we want to boost for promotion. So I also like to ask, do you have any certain promotions that we should know about? And just know that we always have a lot of flexibility with our campaigns.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know getting started for some can be hard. I mean, navigating the Target ecosystem of kiosk and RMS and sign an order and we use PackView as an agency as Digits, which is sort of another layer to kind of get connected to it to help. So I'd say sometimes it can be as quick as a couple days from what I've seen. Others, it takes weeks just because to get all the people to press the right buttons in the right order sometimes is a little bit more difficult than you think it should be. But
yes, the systems part is a little bit trickier, but we kind of have a nice document that walks people through like step 1, step 2, step 3. So that makes it a little smoother.
It's awesome. Well, I know. So once somebody's up and running, how do we know how much money to spend? I mean, I'm sure vendors will ask, and when they ask, can you walk us through our framework? So.
Yeah, we do get that question a lot, right? Like how much should I be spending? Put together our client list and kind of did an analysis, and we came up with these 3 investment strategies. As you can see, there's a growth, a maintain, and a defend option. These are all based on your POS sales. So, if you're a startup below 10 million, you got your buckets there. The midsize is in the middle, and then the large is on the right. The key takeaway too is that these aren't officially like hard rules. They're just sort of planning guidelines. As your business objectives shift, your investment strategy will too. So this is a good place to start. Our team does a really good job of analyzing, your campaign from the start, each month, making different optimizations to make it, better and more efficient and perform better. So then we too might, after 60 to 90 days, I would say, also be able to just reassess, like, are we at the right level? Do we recommend going up? Do we need to stay where we are? So that's also fluid, but it's also a good note that Roundel recommends 5% across the board. I think they mentioned that in their latest webinar. And so we run a little bit more conservatively. But these are kind of where we design buckets, if you will, for our clients.
Yeah, Roundell's getting pricey with that. I mean, the 5% was, I mean, especially if you're a large vendor, 5%
Yes.
is
And I think
a lot
it's,
to me. But Austin, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit before here. So I know one of the really small vendors that are trying to buy business a little bit, right? And like their dollars aren't huge, but their percentages are. So like from a percentages and the growth, what's the highest percentage of spends we've seen from clients? Just to sort of put that number out there for some people.
I mean, if we have a new product launch, a new brand, I've seen 20, 30% plus. It can go pretty
Yeah.
high for new product launches and new brand launches.
Yeah, well, especially if the sales rates are low, right? It doesn't take a lot of money to spend 20, 30, 40% in dollars. And so, yeah, we've definitely, it's good to have that out there because I think we have some brands come to us and they don't know what their competitors are spending. And obviously some competitors are spending that much. Doesn't mean you have to, but if you're trying to beat them out, that's where some of them are at. So
And to be clear, that's probably not a rate that's, sustainable over time. But at that point, you're
not
you're kind of
forever.
investing in like future growth and hope that your, brand picks up distribution at Target and kind of pay off that upfront investment that way.
Absolutely.
Yep.
You're priming the pump.
Yeah, there's a good question that actually just came in that I'll verbalize, and then maybe Austin, Chris, Bridget, you guys can say if you guys see it coming in there. But sort of a question on a dollar guideline to understand how it makes to break through on search volume, market size, etc. I don't know if that question exactly makes sense to you guys to answer differently that we already have. Probably more mid-size vendors, but
It's a tough question to answer because it varies so much based on the category. If you have a very competitive category, for instance, anything in baby is very competitive, a lot of brand loyalty, you're going to want to invest at a higher clip to really break through. But if you're playing in a different category, maybe snacks and grocery, right? We've seen the investment rate doesn't necessarily need to be as competitive as, again, let's just say a baby. So it does vary quite a bit.
well, and I think it depends on your goals too. And I'm even seeing the next question of, at what point do you getting diminishing returns? And I think, yes, just the math would say the more money you put in and your ROAS over time is going to go down because you are eating up the easy conversions, the highest quality scores. And Austin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in general, that is what we see. But different brands have different goals. Some brands want to have a higher share of voice and they're willing to sacrifice some ROAS. And so it kind of depends on where you're at, what your money's meant to do. But
Yeah, and I mean, reading the question, they're asking about a dollar recommendation, and I would say we tend not to lean on an across the board dollar recommendation outside of I do think that 3K a month minimum that Roundel has provided, like generally you want to be spending around $100 a day as a benchmark, but from there anything above that you should be really looking at like this percentage rate relative to your volume at Target.
yeah, and I think the next topic we wanted to touch on a little bit is, what the reasons to increase spend. The vendors are always like, do I need to be doing this? Right? Like, do I need to be running paid search? Right? Like, I'm just spending money every week, every day, whatnot, to kind of try to buy shelf space. And so, every once in a while, and it actually came up yesterday on a new business call where a brand was like, well, what if we just turned it off? What would happen? Right? Like, is this necessary? So, Bridget, I know we just came across a case study, and I kind of wanted you to walk through that because it's an example for a brand, that turned it off and sort of see what happens. But
Yeah, we recently ran a quick experiment to see the impact of our search ads in action. So we did pause a campaign for a brand to measure the difference, and the results were pretty eye-opening. As you can see on the right-hand side of that graph there, the sales did drop by 20% across the board. Just a clear reminder of how vital these campaigns are and, keeping the momentum and driving the steady revenue. And as you can see, like that first week it was turned off, it took a little bit of time to start, dropping even further. But it's just a really good case study to show people that, yes, these are effective and yes, these do help your sales.
right, well, and especially if everybody's business at Target is basically 25% digital or more, And so, not showing up on page one for keyword searches will eat at your business, I think, over time, right? And it's not, one of the things we talk to brands about, it's not as quite as immediate as at Amazon. Amazon, you're literally paying every day to kind of be there. Target, it's a little bit slower, I think, because people might have saw your ad today to plan their shipped order, but then actually went in the store the next day and bought it in person. There's just a little bit more cross shop and a little more hangover, I think, at Target than a fully digital experience at Amazon. And that takes longer to get started, and it takes longer to kind of go away as well because of that. But
Absolutely.
well, Bridget, thank you. Austin, I'm now going to bring you on the spot because we're super lucky today because I got sick of some webinars where we don't get super nerdy and deep. And I say, this is a search webinar. Digits does a lot of search. Let's bring out the keyboard and we'll kind of like get into a couple of things here. And so that's the last kind of section of our content today is to walk through some specific data and some tips and tricks in the space. So I'm going to tee you up for this because I know we had certain buckets. So, I think we have about 4 different tips as we go through the rest of this. So time of day was sort of the first one. So can you kind of walk us through how you think of this and what tips might be either for our clients or for people that are choosing to do it, another way?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just dive right into our first optimization lever. So looking at daily and hourly performance trends. So the core objective here is to pinpoint exactly when your campaigns are going to perform at their peak. So we do this by tracking 2 specific variables, your peak shopping hours and your high traffic days. So what we see, Dave, is we consistently see the highest conversion velocity occurs between those prime shopping hours. Usually it's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So no surprise there. So if you have the budget, those are the must-win hours where you need to bid aggressively and capture those high-intent shoppers. What we can see is if you have a limited budget, you kind of got to do the inverse. So if you're capping out mid-afternoon, what we would recommend is actually pulling back during those peak hours and doing the opposite, scaling up investments early in the morning or late at night when competitor budgets have been depleted. I would say most brands stay live you should shoot for between like 18 and 22 hours a day. So by bidding competitively at night, you can capitalize on some of those brands depleting their budgets early.
Now, Austin, on the inverse of that, like this, I think seems obvious, but just in case, like, why wouldn't you want to, bid more aggressively, say from like midnight to 4 a.m. per the guidance you're showing here?
Really, there's no reason why you wouldn't. You kind of got to pick your battles though, right? So if you're seeing a lot of your competitors are ramping up spend during those prime shopping hours and you want to drive share of voice, you're going to want to make sure that you're staying active. So con of that is obviously ROAS is going to be depleted a little bit, right? More competitive, bids are higher. But if you want to drive efficiency, those early morning to late afternoon hours can really help you.
Got it.
Austin, is this talk about this functionality, even literally the screenshot? This might be something that people haven't seen, before. So, is this how are you activating this in the system?
Yeah, so this screenshot is our day parting tool that is exclusive to PackView. So we have the ability to set bids by hour block by day for a full week. So here you can see Sunday through Saturday, we have a decreased bid multiplier set for midnight to 4 a.m. And then we ramp bids up through 10 p.m. So again, this is a little bit different than the general recommendation I had made. What we did is we looked at the data and we found that our peak shopping hours are between 7 and 10 p.m. So we're bidding competitively. We're increasing our line item bid. I believe it's by 10% during those key hours. The nice thing here is if we see that maybe conversion spikes Saturday from noon to 4 p.m., we can ramp bids up to 30% to really capitalize, that traffic. So we have the ability to really dial in our bids using this day part tool through PackView.
Awesome. Yeah, and I know for those that aren't familiar, PackView is a sort of add-on layer that Digits pays for, Digits uses to sort of do like expert level within search. So Target's free tool is, Roundel Media Studio RMS that doesn't have all the same bells and whistles that if you use an external tool. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So walk us through a bit of how you think about keywords. Keywords is everybody's favorite topic. They have, especially founders. I would say founders love their keywords and how they want to show up. Walk us through how that works at Target and, what your expert tips are there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the funnest part of search. To your point, Dave, a lot of our brands are passionate about showing up with certain keywords. How we think about keywords is we bucket our keyword strategy into 4 distinct buckets. So to maintain absolute control over your spend, we recommend taking keywords into these 4 buckets here. So we're looking at branded, conquest, category broad, and category niche. So start with branded keywords. So this would include anything that explicitly includes your brand name. So here we got Dave's tortilla chips. So they're an excellent utility to prime the pump for new campaigns or to guarantee instant paid search visibility for items that are brand new to Target. But outside of that, if you don't have direct competitor conquesting that's active in your category, we always recommend excluding branded terms because branded keyword bidding, it doesn't drive a lot of incrementality. You're essentially targeting people that are already searching for your items. If you want to negate your keywords, what we recommend doing is doing a broad level negative keyword match in Roundel Media Studio or whatever search management platform that you use. So what that will do versus just a broad exact or an exact negative is as Roundel adds more long tail keywords, let's just say broad level negative would be Dave's chips. Broad level negative would be Dave's tortilla chips, Dave's organic tortilla chips. We're making sure we're covering our bases and making sure that we're negating every variation that Roundel might add to your campaign. So if you do see a competitor bidding on your branded keywords, please don't try to fight it in auction. It can get very expensive and you don't need to do that. So what we recommend doing is just opening a support ticket with Roundel, taking a screenshot and alerting them of that activity. Usually what they'll do is they'll block any unauthorized bidding within 48 hours. So pretty straightforward.
Well, I thought conquesting, isn't that coming at Roundel, or what's the state of that right now?
It's coming. It's been coming for a couple of months, and the test is very limited right now. So it's limited to select categories such as beauty, cameras, and dollhouses. So very small in scale.
And we had a question actually pop up as I was kind of like teeing you up there. So the question was, is Digits executing conquesting in any keyword areas? And what's the latest update from Roundel is when people could expect that to roll out. So if you guys can take that.
Yeah. So we have done some testing for a beauty brand with conquesting. What we found is, at least within the first couple of months of the test, we really haven't seen a lot of scale. We've struggled to spend even a small budget in full. And additionally, like it's very expensive CPC wise. So not driving strong ROAS. I think that's implied. You're not going to drive great ROAS when you're bidding on your competitors' keywords. They're going to try to defend. So yeah, it's definitely been smaller in scale. And I know that the broader rollout continues to be pushed back. So I think right now we're looking at a Q3 launch. When it does fully launch, we're excited to add that to our playbook and start bidding on competitive keywords. But for right now, we just did that small test.
Yeah, and I know we were super excited about it last like March-ish, I think when they announced that it was going to start to roll, and I think we had recommended a 20% budget increase for it, and I do think it's cooling a little bit, right? Like we'll see as it keeps rolling and adding more scale if they truly get to that. But it's definitely on a little bit of a slower roll than I would have told you 6-ish months ago.
Absolutely.
In us, and correct me if I'm wrong, but part of that small scale was kind of like intentional or manually constrained by Target, correct? Of like they weren't allowing all of the inventory that could be available there during this test phase.
That's correct. And I know our team, we were all trying to find our conquesting keywords in the wild. I think 1 or 2 of us was able to find it, but it was only through app. So yeah, Chris, to your point, definitely throttled and super limited.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for the keyword update. What about placements? So, Bridget walked us through a bit where main search shows up, or I think as people think about search, right? I type in pizza, what am I going to get? But that's not all of it, right? At Target has more placement. So help educate us there on how you're seeing that and what tips.
Yeah, absolutely. So Roundel has three core placements. And what I'm going to do here is just highlight what we love, what we don't love, and how to allocate dollars or plan budget across all of these placements. So before I dive in, just a super technical reminder. So your bids are managed via a bid multiplier through Roundel, PackView, whatever your search management platform is. So how that works is it takes your line item bid and then you can multiply it up. I think maximum multiplier is 500%. So you can take your core line item bid, add plus 25% for product detail for category. And then that sets your bid on those placements. So just as you adjust your line item bid, just note that those multipliers are going to stay the same. So if you want to really dial things in, you need to adjust your line item bid and that placement multiplier. So with that being said, let's look at the first placement type, search placements. Pretty straightforward here. I pulled in an example. So tortilla chips, we type that in and we see a sponsored product ad. Bridget called out the product tiles where those ads will show. So generally speaking, like we see a lot of budget go towards these placements. 75% is typically what we see. Strategy here, and this is where like I get super nerdy because you can execute with surgical precision on some of your keywords. We always recommend focusing on your top 10 must-win category keywords and then really lean into them and push to win with aggressive bids. It's important to pick your battles wisely. So as you get data that comes back, you look at ROAS, conversion, new to brand, continue to adjust your strategy, be flexible moving forward so you can balance ROAS, you can balance conversion and your overall campaign goals against other inventory that you have available. So product detail placements are next up. So these can show up on a few different carousels within a product detail page. So here I've highlighted the Discover More Options carousel. You'll see a sponsored ad rolling through. So typically these account for about 15% of your total budget. So what I love about product detail placements is they're very efficient. Because we only pay if somebody clicks, it's a really cheap way to drive reach and frequency. The con is incrementality is questionable. So we don't actually have control over where these surface. You might be serving on a competitor's PDP, but you could also be serving on your own PDP. So typically ROAS is high for these placements, again, because you might be converting and not clicking on an ad. So it's a cheap way to drive conversions. The incrementality can be questionable based on where you're serving, which we have no control over. So the last placement is category placements. So here I have an example of a guest browsing the chip category here. We're serving in the same product tiles, so 1 through 3 or 7 through 9. So what I love about these is promo week performance tends to really push ROAS and impressions up. We see performance really spike. What we like to do as a best practice is bump bids up, leveraging that bid multiplier for key promo weeks. The downside is if you're off a promo week, we do see a lot of volatility with performance. ROAS typically spikes during a promo week, and then it dips a little bit in a non-promo week. So again, here I would say that kind of leads us to question incrementality a little bit. But I would say if you have a big promo week, you want to make sure that you're being visible in these placements, a lot of traffic, and you want to make sure that you're not losing spots to your competitors.
And that's specific to the category placements, the promo week
Correct.
factor then? Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, we like to increase bids across the board. We just see the most volatility with those category placements when compared to search and product detail.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure, some of that is coming from, deals pages that are driving to this as well, from the digital weekly ad. So another question I had for you, Austin, like how familiar would you say brands are with all three of these placement types, or is one a little bit more familiar than the others?
Honestly, a lot of brands that we take over, it feels like they really lean into search and they kind of leave the other two placements on the wayside, which I think is, big opportunity area for brands. Just understanding the functionality of these placements, when to lean in, when to pull back, what they're good at, what they're not good at. It's important to have a strategy for each of these placements to achieve your overall goals.
Yeah, that makes sense. And per what you have here, search is the biggest piece of the budget allocation. So makes sense that they're more familiar there. But you know, an aggregate 25% of the other two, certainly isn't nothing. So it's good to maintain focus on those as well.
Yeah, and we have. I asked Austin to push a little bit. So everybody talks about ROAS in this space. What KPIs do we look at beyond ROAS, and sort of what's next for Digits, right? Like, I would say our aim is to be a premium search provider, right? Like this is what we do. We are retail media folks, right? We need to be really good at our jobs and helping brands in this space. So we're always pushing the envelope, I'd say, of the best way to deliver this. And so that's this page. So I asked Austin, what are the KPIs beyond ROAS? How do we kind of shed a light on maybe what's next and how we deliver service?
Yeah, it's fun to pull back the curtain here a little bit on what we're building for 2027. So in 2026, the primary objective has been to dial in some of the newly exposed data that we've had access to within PackView. So specifically, new to brand, looking at active bidding hours, and then evaluating share of voice. So as you look into 2027, we want to move past those standard metrics, ROAS, conversion, et cetera, that evaluate search in a vacuum. And we want to integrate some of those advanced search metrics directly with target POS sales data. Goal here is to build a comprehensive gold tier measurement suite. So the first thing that we're looking at is investment rates. So Bridget had called out our grid earlier. So what we do here is we look at your total search spend and we divide it by your total online and in-store POS sales to really answer the question, are you investing appropriately to your brand goals, which again, Bridget covered earlier. So what we like to do here is just track that over time as spend ebbs and flows, as sales ebb and flow, making sure that your investment is right-sized over time. So we're not missing the boat. We're not missing opportunities to drive sales. And we're matched with seasonality, with promo calendars, et cetera. So the second metric that we're looking to pull in is your search sales penetration rate. So this is looking at your search attributed sales divided by your total POS. What we want to understand here is how hard your paid search is working relative to total POS. So this helps us call out those opportunities where we can push paid search to accelerate your sales velocity and push those top line sales. So the third one is what I'm most excited about. iROAS, incrementality, is obviously something you go to any conference, any webinar, it's brought up, right? So what we're doing is we're blending ROAS with a lot of data points that we have access to, such as new to brand, conversion attribution windows, exposure type, and the keyword buckets that I called out to strip away any sales that might be cannibalized to arrive at incrementality. So the goal here is to look at campaign performance differently, focusing on what's driving true incremental top line growth. A good example, I brought up product detail placements. When I see a $20 ROAS number, it makes me feel good. I don't know how much of that is necessarily incremental. So having the ability to really dive down and drill down into what is incremental of that $20 ROAS is key to driving top line growth for our clients. So the last metric I want to call out here is looking at estimated missed sales by week. And I know Roundel recently rolled out some of this reporting. So this is something that we've been working on for quite some time. What we want to start to understand is a correlation between your investment rates, auction bids, and active bidding hours. So we want to start to identify if we are leaving sales on the table due to capping out early. How do we right size your investment? How do we highlight opportunities to drive increased sales? And again, really trend that out over time and adjust for seasonality. So building a lot of really fun advanced analytics for 2027. We're starting to pilot some of these now and should be on track to roll these out fully next year to all of our gold clients.
Well, and that's exciting, Austin. I know when you've shared some of this stuff, is this because we have the investment rate is sort of at a brand level? Is a lot of this data looking at brand level, or do we break it down further?
We can get to item level for most of the metrics that I called out, which is exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty interesting. And I know a lot of, especially brands that have, hero items or less items, right? Like how are they being impacted and their conversion rates and whatnot by all that detail can be pretty impactful.
Absolutely.
Well, and for us, gold clients, we do tier out our clients. Currently, gold is anybody spending $250K plus a year, sort of with Roundel with paid search. Just as an agency, typically what happens is we pilot new stuff with them, right? Because they're the ones spending the most money that are the closest attention. And then those types of services start to kind of roll down the spend and implement learning sort of across the catalog as we kind of grow up. Well, awesome, everybody. I know we are super excited about paid search. It's been a big growth vehicle for Target and vendors this year. So I want to thank Chris, Austin, Bridget for joining me today. We are at time. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to join our newsletter, email Chris or I, the hosts. We'll get you in touch with the right questions. And thank you all for attending, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.